Bonjour. Hello, everyone. My talk will be in English. My name is Margot. I'm one of the directors of the creative technology studio, The Workers. We like to use the full spectrum of digital technologies, and we've created all kinds of experiences, from putting VR on dancers to give people the ability to turn a massive mirror sculpture, or making people talk to a driverless car in the year 2035 for the BBC, or inviting the public to get creative at Tate Modern. Why do we create those experiences? What's our process? How do we start? So how did I start? Before getting sucked into the world of design, art, and creative technology, I was studying literature at the Sorbonne in France. And I came across a set of rules that I'd like to explore with you in this talk, because I think they offer an interesting parallel with our work. Those rules are the 3 classical unities used in French theater during the 17th century. So those rules are the unity of action. A play should have one action that is followed with minimal subplot. It's important to follow main topic. Don't confuse your audience by trying to talk about too many things. Unity of time. The action in a play should occur over a period of no more than 24 hours. Be concise. Don't make the action drag on too long than it should. And finally, unity of place. A play should exist in a single physical space. Okay, so this last rule is mainly to make the life of the set designer easier, but nevertheless, we should think of the place of the experience. Where is it? How big is it? How accessible? Unity of action, unity of time, unity of place. Some of the best French plays were written following those quite strict rules. You have impossible love, jealousy, murder, and at the end, always almost tragic death. So even with strict rules, you can create amazing stories and really engage your public. Like this guy, Jean Racine, very, very famous French author in the 17th century, and he was a master at respecting the rules. Pierre Corneille, same time as Jean Racine, hugely respected as well, not so happy with the rules. In The Cid, one of his most famous novels, he broke several rules. There was more than one place, more than one action. Okay, now maybe it makes us smile, but at the time, it was quite a revolution, and it started a passionate debate, still remembered today as La Querelle du Cid, the Cid quarrel. So those polemics, they might seem trivial to us nowadays, but there's still something very relevant, especially when you create experiences, to think about those 3 unities. So I'm going to take you through some of our projects, and maybe like the Pierre Corneille of our time, try to see how we can twist, question, maybe bend some of those rules. So let's look at those 3 unities in the concept of creating an experience. Place. Where is your experience taking place? Is it in a gallery? On a theater stage? On a public place? Or even behind a digital screen? There is always a place, and of course, there's always an action. What is happening in your experience? Is it something to look at, something to observe? Is it something to interact with? Maybe even something to smell. There's always a place, there's always an action, and what about time? Obviously, time is very important. How long is it in the experience? Is it 15 minutes, 1 hour, a full year? Is it set in the present, reflecting on the past, questioning the future? Place, time, and action. Place, action, and time. Call them whatever you want, constraints, challenges. We always need to figure out how to play with each one of them to create successful experience. So I'm now going to take you in the middle of Tate Britain in London at night? Can we challenge the concept of location? Can we connect someone in a remote location to experience something in a physical space? In our project After Dark, we design and we build 4 web-controlled robots, set them free at night in the middle of Tate Britain. The only light that allows you to see are 2 little flashlights from each side of the robots. So the robot becomes an extension of yourself. You experience the art at night like never before. You feel this sensation of sneaking around, maybe like a spy, maybe like a thief in a forbidden place. You shouldn't really be there. You feel curious, maybe a little bit scared to be there on your own, but actually not quite alone, because every now and then, when you don't expect it, you might see another robot passing by. Someone else, somewhere in the world, is also connected, experiencing exactly the same thing as you at the same place. So it's quite a different way to go to the museum. It breaks the limitation of the physical space. You really know, doesn't matter anymore where you are. So if this is place, then what about action? Action to define the beginning of a film, action as a call to protest, or action in a lover's embrace. What does action mean in the context of an experience? There's 2 things. There's action as the message you're trying to communicate, and for that, the rule of the single plot is always a good advice. And there is action as the way the audience will experience what is in front of them. In our work, there's always a part of interactivity. We invite the public to take part, to interact. Without them, there is simply no action. And the public, in a way, is the reason we create experiences. So how do we make it surprising for them? How do we make it interesting? The Science Gallery asked us to participate in the exhibition called Game. Video games. Video games have massively improved over time. Graphics are becoming more and more realistic and beautiful. I mean, personally, I'm not a gamer, but I really enjoy watching people play. But now, what if we rewind for a second and take one of the most basic games and not focus on the way it looks, but on the way you interact with it? This is the famous game of Pong, and our take on it. We're all familiar with it, and for those who have never played it, you get the rule instantly. But we wanted to go beyond the screen and involve your full body to the game. So what would you do if you were in an exhibition and you saw a scale on the floor? Personally, I'd jump on it and see what happened. What about a spirit level? Maybe you move it, see if something moves. A microphone, what do you do with a microphone? You don't always need instructions. In this, there was 0 instructions, and the public got the rules straight away. And it was quite fun. So in the action, the object, in a way, in Pong are the action. They are the call to action. They say, come on, jump on me, speak on the microphone. So action in this project takes a whole different meaning when your full body is involved. Now I'm going to take you very far away from the art world and from the innocence of playing video game to a project called the Hospital Living Room in Guy's Hospital in London, designed for cancer patients. Time is a very sensitive subject for cancer patients, and we certainly don't have the pretension to fix that problem. However, we can help them focus on the present and let them escape, just for a moment, their condition. In the hospital living room, we invite them to take a break from their treatment, far away from the clinical environment. So they come in, they sit, and they can choose from 35 different soundscapes around the world. But now, to make the experience more real and to feel like you're really there at this exact moment, the app uses real-time weather location information. So, for example, if you pick a sound and it's raining at this exact moment, you will hear the rain. If it's windy, you will feel the wind. So where will they go? Maybe a place they've been before, maybe a place they'd like to travel to, a quiet place, or maybe a very noisy place. To talk a little bit about the technology we used in this project, we used highly directional speakers. So that means that you can sit, and only you will hear the sound that you have chosen. The person next to you will hear something completely different. That means you don't have heavy headphones. You can just close your eyes and escape for a moment. So in this photo, for example, they are all listening to something very different. Time is such an important part of our life and should be a crucial part of the experience we try to create. Time takes a whole different meaning in the next and last project I'll present. But this time I'll try to take you through the entire process, from the very first phone call to the development of an idea up to the first performance. So last year we received a call from the V&A, and they wanted us to participate in a research project and the development of a prototype. So here's what we were told on the first meeting. The project will be a collaboration between the V&A, a museum, Punch Drunk, an immersive theater company, and us, the workers, a creative technology studio. The project will have at its center a difficult object, one of Dickens' manuscripts. Manuscripts, we were told, are the curator's nightmare. They're very fragile, hard to decipher, and if you're not an expert, they can be quite challenging to access. And last but not least, a challenging audience. Teenagers between the age of 15 and 18. So obviously, we're really excited about the project. But now personally, what did I know about Charles Dickens? I'm super ashamed to say that before the project, my only knowledge came from films and bad TV adaptation. And you need to do your research, obviously. So I started to read David Copperfield. I went to the theater to watch Christmas Carol. I listened to audiobooks. We received some invaluable knowledge from the V&A, and we also had access to their manuscript collection. Then we had a few brainstorming sessions with the V&A and Punch Drunk, and we invited the students across different schools in England for a full-day workshop to try to get to know our audience. And we started like this. We said, okay, so if I tell you Dickens, be honest, what do you think? So challenging audience said the word boring came back quite a few times. In summary, they find the language very difficult. They didn't know how to relate to Dickens' time. And they had very little knowledge about Dickens or his life or his work. So, okay, so boring, difficult, and maybe difficult to relate to. That's the challenge. And personally, I don't blame them. I remember perfectly well being their age and feeling the same way about books that were on the curriculum. So after we took them on a little tour of the V&A, Catherine Johnson, our expert on Dickens, who's part of the V&A, gave them some crucial insight on Dickens. And there was this really amazing turning point on the attitude of the teenagers towards Dickens. I didn't know he had friends. Dickens used to write to his friends little message all the time, just like you might use text messages. I didn't know he was into fashion. Dickens apparently was quite handsome and loved fashion, and the teenager really loved that point. I didn't know he was poor as a child. Dickens' life is extremely important and reflected throughout his work. So if you get to know the man, you'll understand better his work. So we went from boring and difficult to, okay, it's a real person, maybe a bit interesting. Not there yet, but we were getting somewhere. And then in the afternoon, there was a workshop. And we told them, okay, guys, if you were in our shoes and you had to design an experience for 15 to 18-year-olds around a manuscript, what would you do? And it was amazing. They totally went for it. One person said, it could be this, we could recreate this entire Victorian street, and if you knock on the door, a different character from Dickens' book opens and invites you in. It could be this giant sleepover. The spirit of Dickens locks you in, and to escape, you have to free his spirit. Or it could be this nice Victorian dinner party. You're there, eat the food, talk to Dickens, talk to his character, and have an amazing time. So we got them excited, they got us excited. We felt like, okay, there's definitely something we can do. Obviously, the idea had no budget limit, and we did. It was just a prototype. We had very little time, and certainly not the budget to recreate an entire Victorian street. So what could we do? Starting from the manuscript, can we lift the story and everything it represents to create an experience? Can we make the past relevant to today's audience? So then that's when we got together with the V&A and Punch Drunk again and again and again to try to brainstorm, shape an experience. And there's a lot more people involved in the project than behind this photo, but I thought this really captured the glamour of creative thinking. So after a few days of hesitation, what would be the place, action, and time of this experience? The place will happen at the V&A. The students will be invited on a regular school trip. A place like the V&A has amazing, very fragile, very expensive collection. So getting permission to do anything different than a regular visit can be a challenge. But in a way, maybe that can play in our favor. No one will expect that something out of the ordinary will happen within these walls. So let's use the building, let's use the collection. Let's maybe even use the visitors within the museum. Obviously, we're not going to start moving the collection around. That'd be absurd. The action needs to enhance the collection, enhance the manuscript. So then we thought about, many different ways of how do we bring this manuscript to life. Very briefly, we thought, maybe we could use augmented reality. We put a device, and then you get more information from what is in front of you. But to be honest, very quickly, we were not too happy with that because we didn't want to use easy tech or tricks. And also, teenagers have a mobile phone or a tablet in their hands all day long. It's time to do something a bit different. But while we were talking about this, we thought there's still this idea about augmented reality, getting more out of reality. So what if we could create augmented reality, but not through what you see, but through what you hear? A kind of augmented reality through sound. And the action will happen in the present. The school kids will be invited on a school trip. They'll be wearing their uniform just like any other days. But then, using this augmented reality through sound, can we maybe disrupt the present a bit and invite the past? So this is what our 3 practices came up with, and that's what happened on the day of the first performance. I can't stress enough that this is a prototype. It's a slice of what could be possible, and a proof of concept in a way. So the students are coming to the V&A. They've been invited by Gary Hoffman, who is an expert on Dickens, and he's planning an exhibition in 2020 for the 150th anniversary of Dickens' death. And he would like to have the students' feedback. So they arrive in front of the office, knock on the door, but then it's not Gary who answers, it's Clara, the research associate. She's she's a bit embarrassed. Oh no, I thought Gary cancelled. So already things don't really start as planned. So she moves around. Okay, well, you're here, you came from far. So she showed them the office, she showed the research on the wall, she showed them the reproduction of Charles Dickens' death. And then she tells them, well, we have a few ideas on how to shape the exhibition. And Dickens' life shows them the first edition of David Copperfield, a very autobiographical book about his life. Then Dickens' death. She makes them observe the last page of the manuscript of The Mystery of Edwin Drood, his final unfinished novel. Right there are the last word he ever wrote. And Dickens now, an empty plinth. We're not really sure. We don't know. We just don't know what to put in there. Maybe that's where you could help. Then she looks around. She says, okay, first I think you need to learn as much as you can about Dickens before giving your feedback. And she handed them those really chunky headphones. She said, oh, this is an audio guide that Gary wrote in the 90s. I'm sorry, it might be very fragile. It's very old technology from the 90s. So the kids are off on their audio tour in the middle of the V&A, and it starts just like any regular audio tour.
Welcome. You stand in the great halls of the Victoria and Albert Museum.
It's very informative, maybe slightly boring, but they continue a bit the visit. Every now and then there's something just not quite right.
I walk the streets of London, and all around me my stories appear.
But then, it's very old technology, right? It's from the 90s. They continue and they stop in front of Dickens' portrait. There's still something not. Now it's really not working well. You can barely hear the voice of the audio guide lady. A man's voice start taking over.
Listen very carefully to my voice, my instructions, as I will not repeat them.
It's Charles Dickens. The ghost of Dickens has taken over the audio guide. I have watched you wander this exhibition, and within you, I see my younger self. You can hear footsteps. Dickens tells them to leave the room, turn left, come and find me. He's walking faster. The students are almost running through the gallery. Down the marble staircase, you're getting closer to me, tell them. Continue through the corridor, onto the right, and stop. Dickens invites the students onto a balcony. In front of you is my most treasured part of this building, the most perfect place to watch people. Explore like I do, and you will see like I see, hear like I hear. From the balcony, the students can look down and look and observe the V&A visitors. Dickens tells them, what are they thinking? Where have they come from? What are their fears, hope, and dream? As they continue to explore this place and walk around, some sounds are starting to appear. There is music in that corner. If they get closer to the sound, it gets louder. If they move back, it gets quieter. If they start to move their head, the sound only comes from one side. There's a handbell in that place. So the sound is triggered by their own movement and changes just as it would if you were in a real place. So you feel the present, the sound of the past, and is asking you to observe the present. So Dickens' creative process of observing people walking through the street of London takes all its relevance. The manuscript is just a starting point. It's the anchor to something much bigger. It's a poetic proof that an author once lived, and it's in a way a proof of its creative process. Back in the office, they get one last look at Dickens' manuscript, his last word. As they get closer to the handwritten words, a drawer from Charles Dickens' desk opens magically. In the drawer, there's this sentence. It is in vain to recall the past unless it works some influence upon the present. Now, this is why we create experiences, to get people involved, to get them excited, to have the past have some influence on the present, to have the present question the future. Place, action, and time. You need some rules. They're the foundation of the experience. If you break all the rules at once, all you will end up with is chaos. But at the workers, what we like to do is pick one of those elements, place, time, or action, twist it, bend it. And that's how we obtain a sense of surprise or delight. We believe that if you experience something, live something, are moved by something, you're a lot more likely to remember it. So I'm inviting you to join us in the creation of new experiences, because we feel that it's in collaboration that you get the most beautiful results. Thank you.